This episode of the Electric Scooter Podcast should be a pretty interesting one. Not long ago, I was on a podcast called Streetwise English, where I was interviewed by Carl McLarty, and he came into Las Vegas after that for CES. We hung out at CES, and we got to talking, of course, about scooters. That's what I was there for at CES. Carl was covering a multitude of different types of products, and he's really good at VR, is what he's been doing lately. I'll let him speak for himself, but from what I've been able to see of his videos, of which, of course, I'm a subscriber, and I do now own an Oculus virtual reality headset, and Carl has taught me a couple things about that. And Carl has also recently been teaching me, mentoring me how to step up my YouTube game a little bit, because I am a podcaster, not a YouTuber. But it doesn't hurt to step up your game in anything. So good evening, Carl. How you doing?
What's up, Dagwood?
Hey, do you want to promote McLarty Films or a podcast or anything you got going? You can do it at any time. A web page.
Okay, yeah. How are you doing? Thanks for having me here, Dagwood, and greetings to your audience around the world. I'm impressed that the Electric Scooter Podcast is found, all over Europe. And
it's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't believe it myself. When I read the statistics, I just have the suspicion that they can't be true.
There must be a lot of people in the world that love electric scooters, right? So real briefly, I am a cameraman, a video editor. I basically create videos of all types. Recently, I was out at CES, and I got to interview a lot of different companies with cutting-edge technologies, and I ran into you there in the micromobility section, and we saw some really cool bikes as well as scooters, and everything there. Every year I try to go to CES, although it was canceled last year because of the C word, and so this was pretty exciting to get back into it and see everyone, even though a lot of our international friends weren't able to come because of inconveniences of visas and all kinds of other things. But, we did have pretty good protocols to prevent the spread of the C word.
And thank you. Your brother's a doctor, and you had an extra N95 mask for me. So that was awesome. Thanks for that. So we got to talking, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was me that actually initiated. I texted you and said, hey, how about doing an off-road scooter film, right? And it turned out really well. It's only 2 minutes long. Again, I don't say, go to my YouTube channel, please, because, again, I'm not a YouTuber. The YouTube videos simply kind of go along to augment the podcast. So if you like the podcast, then go ahead to the YouTube channel and check it out. But we went off-road, and it wasn't hard to talk you into it. I was surprised. I have friends that are four-wheel drive fanatics, that ride ATVs, that fly off of hills on motocross, and they look at the little wheels on a scooter, and they look at the hills and stuff. And literally, this has happened to me a number of times. No thanks, Dagwood. I'm not going there. But you right away, hey, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I didn't really have any idea of what to expect. I thought it was kind of like an electric skateboard with handlebars, but that kind of gives you a false sense of security, because I found out that just like wiping out on an electric skateboard, and I've only tried one of those like once before, and the thing just scared the hell out of me, and I didn't try it again, because that was
a skateboard or
that
a scooter?
Was a skateboard.
But skateboard is 4 wheels and a scooter is only 2, so some people have difficulty with the 2 wheels.
Yeah, and I think the one that I tried was it was kind of like a homemade version, and so the trigger, it accelerated too fast, and the guy just had it so it would just like basically take off like a rocket and you'd land on your ass. But yeah, the scooter, I thought that it would be a lot safer because you have the handlebars, but that's failing to consider the terrain
and the geometry of your handlebar and where you put your foot on your front wheel or towards your rear wheel is crucial.
Yeah, there are a lot of variables out there in the Nevada desert that come into play.
So I was surprised at how well you did. It actually, it blew me away. You were incredible. It's incredible to me to think that even with your lack of a background with electric scooters, which please talk about that in just a moment if I ever shut up, and coupled with the fact that we're going off-road in really difficult conditions, you just jumped on. You're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. You did eat it a few times. I ate it I think we both ate it like 3 times, a couple of which got caught on film. But you have a background in martial arts, which I believe helped you roll and tumble when you ate it.
Yeah, this goes back to not martial arts, but to skateboarding. A couple of years ago, I decided to try to skate as a, middle-aged person and not skating like 20 years.
And your mind still thinks you're young, because I did the same thing. Yeah.
No problem. And then, like within about 5 minutes, I ate it right on the asphalt. But I was able to kind of like roll out of it, and I didn't like face plant it totally. And then I searched YouTube, and they said, you know what, before you skate, if you haven't skated in 20 years, you need to practice falling.
Right.
So the guy had this really good exercise, and it was like basically you skate off of like a driveway into grass, and then you practice just tumbling into the grass, like basically dive rolling and landing. I'm right-handed, so it's easier to roll on my right forearm a little bit, tuck your chin in. And I also used to do jujitsu, and that's basically a warm-up. You dive roll, and try to do right side, left side, and then go backwards, tucking your chin in and not reaching for the ground. All that stuff comes into play with scootering too.
Electric Scooter Podcast. Broke the ear. The name of the video, is it Gnarly Cabo Wolf Warrior Gnarly Off-Road Desert Ride or something like that? Do you remember the title of the video? It's something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to just feature the model because I know a lot of people that are interested in searching for that type of thing. They're looking for an exact model to see, footage of the ride and review. Yeah, I think we said it had the keywords in it.
Gnarly.
Cabo
Wolf Warrior.
Off-road and Las Vegas, I think.
Yeah.
All those in there.
And I encourage scooter heads that are listening to watch that video, because you will see a great example of Carl eating it hard, and you can just see him rolling through the air. He's tucking his shoulder. He's landing just... It's textbook beautiful example of how to eat it on a scooter. And you came up on your feet. You rolled a couple times and you ended up squatting on both feet. It's so impressive. And you really have to see the video to imagine this. And the it's only 2 minutes long. So it's McLarty Films is the YouTube channel, correct?
Thank you for that shout out.
And
yes.
No, really. I mean, everybody I've showed that video to has said, wow, this is just incredible. And I think it's important for scooter heads to watch to see how to crash. There's one example of how to crash, and there's a great example of how not to crash, because I ate it hard.
I thought you were like, paralyzed or stuck on the ground. I mean, you were just laying there, and I saw your head hit a rock, so... That was pretty scary.
Double. I literally was seeing double, and I had a friend who died in a motorcycle crash in Japan, and I remembered his head swole up, so they had to that complicated the whole rescue procedure and everything, that somebody didn't remove his helmet. So I took my helmet off kind of quick, not knowing. The first couple seconds, if you look at the video, you can see my hand reaches out and grabs my knee. I'm touching my legs to see if I'm okay. And I stand up, I look at you, and you had two heads that slowly blended into one. I really was concussed solidly there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes until my vision came back. But showy, full-faced motorcycle helmet. And it just ended up with just 2 little chips. It knocked off my camera mount and left a couple chips on the helmet. Otherwise, it's perfect. So it really does tell you how important it is to wear the right gear. I was almost going to let you wear like a bicycle helmet. I said it's up to you, because some people are really political, and I want to say hard-headed, no pun intended, but some people are really serious about the helmet thing, and I only want minimalist this and that. But I was kind of encouraging you to wear full face, and I think you were smart enough to reach for that full face and go, oh yeah, this is what I'm wearing.
Yeah, I had no experience and no idea what to expect, but Dagwood assured me. He said, well, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't go for that cool-looking bicycle helmet with the GoPro mount on top. The whole reason why I wanted that other helmet was because there was a GoPro mount on top. But I wasn't even thinking, you know what? I might crack my skull on a rock, or face, because with that bicycle helmet, there's no protection for, let's say you do a face plant and, you lose your front teeth. Or something like that.
Right.
Like that, there's zero protection. So I'm really glad that you suited me up with the full helmet, the biker jacket, and even proper shoes, right? Those boots were really important, because the kickstand was like stabbing right into the what is that?
Achilles
or
your Achilles or your ankle. Always wear high tops. Every time, and it's not been many times, but there have been a few times that I've, for whatever reason, I'm out of town and jumping on someone else's scooter I hadn't planned on scooting, that I wore low top shoes. Regret it every single time. I knock it on a rock. I knock it on the side of the scooter. I knock it on the kickstand. Something always happened. But I'll never forget when I was, I guess, a preteen. I was probably about 11 or 12 years old. My father's best friend had a good buddy who had everything going for him. He was handsome. He had lots of money. He rode motorcycles. To me, he was cool, leather jacket, riding motorcycles, Triumph motorcycles that really shake your kidneys. I'd get on the back with him on the front, and, you're beat up after 15 minutes. But he was wearing a motorcycle helmet that was not full-faced. And he went down, and his body wasn't hurt that bad, but he hit in the chin area, exactly the spot that's not covered by a full face, and he was disfigured for the rest of his life. So a guy goes from, all the girls are chasing him and he's got money and all this stuff, to a person, obviously it's going to change your personality when you're disfigured. Also, is going to affect you mentally. So he was a completely different person from being the guy that everybody said, wow, this is, like a modern living Elvis Presley that everybody knows. Everybody, the girls want him and the men want to be like him. To just by having the shape of his jaw changed after the surgery, just destroyed his whole life. So the simple act of putting on a full face helmet is kind of a big deal. Where are you girls from? Austria? Well, throw another shrimp on the Barbie and fire up the Electric Scooter Podcast. So I am being honest when I say, and I think I told you this offline too, how impressed I was with your performance, because, like I said, I have friends who are into off-road and four-wheel drive vehicles and motorcycles who are really intimidated by the Wolf Warrior and don't even want to ride it on the sidewalk. So what we did is I started you off on the Apollo Explorer, which is I would say, mid-range scooter, maybe at the top of the mid-range scooters as far as single motors go. That's about a $1,400 scooter. So the company Apollo is in Canada. And with a single motor scooter, there's not that much to think about. Yeah, I mean, your balance and all those kind of things and turning and all that. But as far as when you add another motor to that front wheel, it's a completely new dimension, a completely new dynamic, handling characteristics. Everything changes. So can you tell us first a little bit about what your background was and is in scooting, and when you first jumped on the Apollo Explorer, how you felt? And then I kind of remember the words you said when you jumped onto the Wolf Warrior. Whoa, this is a lot taller, and there's a couple different things. So start with your background or lack of background in scooting, and then move us up progressively to the Explorer, and then the Wolf Warrior going in circles on concrete, and then the dirt.
Okay, so let me first say that I have very little experience in scooting, like what you guys are talking about, proper scooting. I guess my experience that would be closest to scooting would be I used to ride a motorcycle, a little Suzuki GS 500. That really did remind me of riding a motorcycle out there on the scooter. Actually, I was experimenting when we were out there on the in the desert. I was experimenting with leaning, trying to keep my handlebars as straight as possible, because that's how you slide, and everything is by turning those handlebars. So I was trying to do more turning with body leaning and experimenting with shifting my weight forward versus back. And then also I naturally found that changing my stance to like, I don't know what you call it, instead of a skateboard stance, to your feet parallel right next to each other. And for certain cases that worked well. Oh, and then another thing is kind of like that I found useful was kind of like a, what do you call it? It's like a Kung Fu cat stance, like where you put your weight on your back foot.
Yes.
And then
you bend your back leg.
Yeah. And then all your like 70% weight on your back foot versus your front foot. And I think going down hills especially. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Versus going up hills, shifting your weight forward. But then now let's go back to my previous experience before scooting with you. I would say the most helpful experiences were riding a motorcycle briefly before I totaled it and then decided to get a car instead. That was my early days in LA when traffic is just a nightmare and parking and everything else. It's just so much easier to have a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
And then also on the mountain, snow skiing and snowboarding. I grew up doing that. And so I think...
balance.
Yeah, anything with balance and wiping out. Mm-hmm. I'm not much of a surfer. I tried surfing a few times, mostly just longboarding. I guess from that experience, you don't have to worry about the scooter hitting you in the back of the head.
Right. Unless you're doing something really radical like X Games stuff.
Yeah. Growing up, actually, I like boogie boarding better than surfing because the boogie board's soft. Mm-hmm. So if you do get tumbled or you get hit with your board, you're all right. But anyways, back to the scooter. When we did our brief training session on the cement doing circles.
At the fabulous Scooter Dome in outrageous Las Vegas.
What I noticed first was how dang fast they were. The scooters cruise, and I wasn't expecting that. I mean, we didn't wear eye protection, but actually even on the concrete, there was like some debris from yard work or something. And for a minute there, I was tearing up, and I was like, oh man, combined with the wind, the debris, this could be dangerous.
You feel it when you get up around 18 to 20 miles an hour. It's noticeable on your eyes, maybe even 15.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then once we progressed up from the single motor to the big giant beast mobile, the Wolves, you're actually standing pretty high off the ground. It's not like a skateboard or a normal scooter. You're like 1.5 feet, 2 feet up in the air.
You're going from a sports car to a Land Cruiser.
Yeah. And I noticed that when I was dismounting, coming down, I was kind of like air stepping and then straight legging my foot down into the cement because I didn't have a sense of how high I was up in the air. So that was different. And then once we shifted into the dual engines where you have the front wheel going at the same time as the back wheel, it's kind of like a Subaru designed for going up mountains, right?
That's where it gets complicated because like you're saying, where to put your weight forward or back, almost everything changes once you turn that front wheel on because you need to have traction on your front wheel, right? So you need to, once that front wheel's on, you need to maintain some kind of weight forward. Or if your front end starts slipping, you're in trouble. If your rear end slips, human beings, for some reason, that's why people do drifting and that. Rear sliding out is natural, but front wheel drive is a completely different dynamic.
Yeah, and that reminds me, the front wheel drive, and then the other thing that I struggled which is a total noob mistake, and this was my first flying over the handlebars experience, was
it's called an endo.
An endo. Yeah, I grabbed the brakes on my right hand.
Oh no.
So, I was trying to slow down. I hit some soupy gravel, and the first instinct is to just slow down quickly, and I grabbed the brake. Total noob mistake.
I did tell you though. Yeah. I did warn you. Just keep your hand off the front brake for the most part, unless you're on good flat land, on solid packed surface, and stopping in a straight line. Just use your rear brake.
Yeah, but it's kind of like when we were editing on the computers later, you just naturally go for your mouse pad because you have these muscle memories of
True.
like you just automatically go there, and so it takes a big wipeout to untrain yourself from doing that.
Well, one way that I try to mitigate that, and I probably explained it to you on my scooters too, is I put the brakes way down, almost to where it's unnatural. You have to let go of your trigger finger and readjust your hand in order to grab that front brake. And that's another way to do that. But once you get experienced, like Valentino Rossi in the world of MotoGP, at using that front brake, you know when to feather it. Even in fast corners, you can use that front brake. But understand that in real life on pavement, if you're just going in a straight line and stopping, 80% of your stopping power comes from your front brake. But if you're worried about losing control, just stick with the rear brake. And I tell noobs, when you're on that scooter or motorcycle or whatever it is, particularly low speed maneuvering or on tricky surfaces, just use the rear brake only.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did great though. Don't feel like you screwed anything up. You actually, I would say you did amazing or phenomenal just getting out there. You showed no fear. I mean, going down these hills, and it's your first time. There were some pretty treacherous hills.
We were cruising. I mean, we could feel the wind. I mean, we were. How fast do those scooters go?
I've had mine up to 54 miles an hour, but when we're on those back roads, we're not going that. We're just trying to stay erect, basically.
Yeah.
You're trying to not fall the whole time.
Yeah. My forearm was pretty was tired from clinching onto those handlebars.
I do that too
for dear life.
Your brain has to tell your hands, relax.
Yeah.
The Electric Scooter Podcast is big, bold, and brassy, just like the state of Texas. One part of the video, I said something like, if you're gonna go down, it's gonna be bad. But I was talking about specifically when we went up the side of that mountain. That was pretty precarious, because if you fall there, you don't just fall and hit the ground. You're rolling and tumbling quite a distance. I mean, you could see the Vegas Strip, how far up we were, and you could see where we started the road, that we were up there. Pretty good elevation.
Yeah, that was kind of fun in the video. We just shot on the fly. There wasn't any prepared questions or anything. And so you'll hear the sound bites in the video that we edited. Some of them are out of context, but it tells the story. So
it fits.
Yeah,
it does fit. Yeah, I was talking to you about specifically going up that side of the mountain. Like, if we eat it up there, that's really, really bad. But we did that last, so you got your skills up a little bit, going over the I call it the washboard, because it's up and down, up and down.
That was my favorite part.
It's just, what would you call that? Trenches or ditches, just over and over. And
I don't know. It's like a sine wave, right? It's just like
up and down, up and down. I like that too. And you start to be able to read the troughs as far as where the loose gravel is. And I'm slowly realizing that loose gravel is really the enemy. I think that's what you want to stay away from. I've had problem with talcum. I haven't taken you to a place. There's a couple other places I go to that have what I call it talcum, but it's super fine sand. Like, if you had it in your hand and you blew on it, it would fly over. Like LeBron James, before he starts a basketball game, he gets that talcum in his hand, he slaps it together, and it flies through the sky. It's like that. That is not good either, especially if you combine that with a hill. But where I really ate it was going downhill, and I believe my front wheel, I watched the video very close, and I wasn't touching the brakes. It was downhill, and I think a rock nudged my front wheel to the left. So once it got a little bit left, that deep gravel sunk in and forced the bike down. And when you go down, you're kind of low to the ground, you have small wheels. You go down immediately. You don't have a lot of time to think. At least for me, you did it naturally because you practice it in jiu-jitsu. You don't say, well, I believe I'm about to come into a little bit of difficulty here, so I'll take my right shoulder and I'll tuck it. It's complete panic mode. It's just, wah! But I mean, I was down before I knew it. And it's happened to me. That's not the first time. First time in that exact spot, but I've gone down a few times. And generally, I can keep on my feet and actually even run. Like, you took a couple steps when you went down and tucked your shoulder and roll. This happened to me literally so fast, there was zero time to think of any type of protective measure.
And I think also we were on our way back to the car.
Oh,
we kind of had to let our guard down because we'd already been to the top of the mountain, took pictures of the sunset up on the top, and then we were kind of just cruising back to the car, just thinking we were home free, right?
I have heard, and I'm sure you've heard, that a huge percentage of accidents happen within 3 miles of the home. And we were drenched in sweat. Am I right? I told you before we went out there, it's like going to the gym, and the next day you feel it too. Just completely drenched in sweat. And I think, I don't know about you, you're younger than me, but I pushed my limits. So yeah, I was tired and ready to get back. And you're right. I mean, you've had have a little bit of mental fatigue as well.
Yeah, you've certain times you've got the adrenaline flowing and just like exhaustion just from like grabbing your handlebars and your stance, as you're riding. So yeah, you really do get physically tired. I mean, I was out of breath. I remember one time I got up. I don't even think it was after a wipeout, but I was lightheaded. I was dizzy. Just
that I got that on my video. Now, I don't think that part was on your video, but I did put that in. Yeah, and you mentioned
I cut that out of my video.
Well, your video is so much more professionally done and concise. Yours is 2 minutes long. Mine is over 4 minutes on the Dagwood Streets channel. But if you go to the Dagwood Streets channel and watch my video, in the comments, there is a link to the McLarty Films video. And there he goes, Scooterhead's Carl McLarty of McLarty Films. And you can check out his YouTube channel, McLarty Films, where lately he's been specializing in virtual reality. So strap on your Oculus or whatever VR type of contraption you have for your melon, and go on over to McLarty Films YouTube channel. He also has a podcast, Streetwise English. Next week, we're going to continue talking with him because we did not get to a couple subjects I wanted to address. Specifically, the difference between riding single motor and dual motor, when that dual motor kicks in. Also, has he changed his mind about scooters? Because remember, this is really not only his first time riding an electric scooter, but taking a beast scooter off-road. So what kind of impressions did he have of scooters in general prior to even stepping foot on the Wolf Warrior? And did he catch the bug? Is there a possibility of a scooter in his future? Well, stay tuned to the next episode of the Electric Scooter Podcast and find out. We may also have a quick appearance, reprisal, if you will, with Oh Man Dan. So stick around. And until next time, keep the shiny side up and the dirty side down. And in the words of Frank Sinatra, I'm gonna live till I die. Doesn't get more succinct than that, now does it, Scooter?